Hi, I'm Jeremy Fernsler, and I'm going to be demonstrating Commander, the CLI command construction application for visual thinkers. Now, the reason that this application exists is because people who are animators typically work in a program such as Maya. Now, Maya is a large and complicated program that takes years to master. It has enormous depth and is a very large application in terms of system resources and memory as well when it's running. So when you're finished completing something, you can render your final sequence to your set of images directly in the Maya interface using a setup like this. You notice that these are filled with a various amount of settings. But what happens is when you launch a render, Maya remains resident in RAM. So when we look at that, with the system resources that Maya is taking up, we don't have as many resources as we could have available for rendering. If we could render using the command line interface, we can free up many more system resources. Now, this is something that beginning or novice animators will tend to avoid just because they see the command line as something of a more esoteric thing that they have no right using, or it's something for the domain of programmers, and certainly not visual thinkers such as animators. This is where my system comes in. When you first launch Commander, it launches like this, with the window with no controls available except for quit, and prompting you to drop a scene file to begin with both an icon and a little text prompt. Now we can take our Maya scene, which is here, and we can drag and drop it and right onto our window. And this will load up all the information that we need. And you can see from here we can begin the process of constructing our command line. And just a quick overview, these sections represent sort of how you want to be thinking about creating your render command. And the render command is always resident down here and formatted using colors to group specific parts of the command together. If we start at the top, this is the part of the command that you want to think about first. And we have the input file, which we get from just dropping it on, and it pulls out the input file name and the full path. We have the output file, which contains the output file name, but also the path where it should go. And this is good practice to place it in this directory here, the images directory. And so this is already taken care of for the animator. The other things that we take care of in Commander are the format of the name, which is the name, the sequence, the image sequence number, and the extension, the output file format, how much padding there is for each numbering system, so things sort properly, and then the name and the path as well. So just by dropping the file on, all of those things are taken care of you and assembled into your final command. Now the frame count is the next thing you want to take care of. Are you rendering a still frame or an animation? If you're rendering an animation, you can choose which frames you're rendering to. And just by entering those, you can see that it updates here as well as down here in the bottom. Now the next section is a bit of a shortcut. We have three option qualities. Three quality options where we can select to render in draft mode, a good mode, or final quality. And as you're working on animations, you want to be able to quickly preview things, do some final tests before you go to what could be very time-consuming final render. And so this is just a very fast way to introduce beginning animating people. Also, advanced users can use these as shortcuts to quickly generate a render as they need to. These load settings all the way throughout the interface in this section, but these are also something that we can override. So if you need something in draft quality to just check the animation speed or check your lighting, you can do that. But if you want to maintain your draft settings but render to full size, you can also do that. So this is just a quick way to get yourself into the ballpark before you fine-tune what you want in this next section. The next section is the image size, and it shows a representation of the relative sizes of these three preset choices. And these presets are in the same ratio as HD television so that it makes sense for proper rendering. Moving down, this is just a section where we have more esoteric settings. So as you become a little bit more familiar with these settings and what they do, you can choose to override them for your particular need and generate the command that you want. This allows you to quickly switch on and off motion blur, which can add render time to your process. The one last thing that we do for Commander here is we allow the animation to be distributed across multiple computers. If we choose just one computer, which is the standard method, you see that the computer here represented by the 1 will show a sequence of frames that will be rendered. Now, if we change this to multiple computers, like 2 computers, you can see that the sequence can get split into 2 straight sequences. And we can do the same with 3, where it will evenly split the 3 sequences. And finally, this last section, if we switch to interlaced, it will actually distribute the renders across the 3 computers in a way where they get interleaved as they're working. This is the most efficient way, but it's also the more difficult thing to set up, especially for new users. So it's often avoided as a way of rendering. By doing this in Commander, we can do this very easily. Now what happens finally here is that we have the render command. The render command is constantly updated based on what you are choosing to do, and the colors associate to each section so that you can make associations as you're working. Now when you're ready to render, you can choose the command that you want. So if you have only one computer chosen, you can only have one command. If you have 3 computers and you need to distribute that command across 3 computers, you can choose which one you want to copy. So when I hit to clipboard, just like that, it tells me that the command has been placed in the clipboard, at which point if I go to a terminal, I can just simply paste it in there, hit enter, and the render will begin. And so this will continue until the image is complete. So the final thing that we want to talk about is the help system. So the help system inside of Commander is very straightforward. I have instant tooltips on each of these question marks that come up as soon as you mouse over it. This allows very quick information as to what each section does and what the ideal settings are. So you can learn as you're going. Finally, the last thing that we get to see is that beginner users will be able to create a command and render something that will be very useful for them in terms of rendering without having the Maya interface resident in RAM. And power users will be able to use this to quickly generate render commands and work more efficiently, since as you learn to be a little bit faster and you become more proficient with these things, the most important thing to you is efficiency. Finally, if you want to set a new command, you can simply either reset it, which begins this again, or you can always drag something in and it will refill in everything except for your quality settings, which allows you to quickly generate multiple commands for something like a batch render. All right, and that's Commander. We can see that our final image here is complete. There we are. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that demonstration.